Elisia sat at her desk, her expression grave. She picked up a pen and began writing an elegant script on a sheet of paper. At first glance, the letter appeared to be nothing more than a polite greeting. But its true purpose was far different. She was leaking information about Dafa to Caleb. Caleb had asked Sarah to gather intelligence on the Mana Stone mines. Initially, Elisia had intended to ignore him, but in the end, she decided to write the letter. She placed the final period to complete the flowing, elegant lines. Elisia set down her quill and carefully reread what she had written. That should suffice. Her expression as she reviewed the letter was measured. The wording was exactly as she intended. She projected the image of a spoiled, affectionate younger sister who feigned trust in her brother Caleb. She wrote that she knew little about mana mines but mentioned Franz had gone on a business trip to Dafa the previous week. After confirming the content, Elisia folded the letter. Her expression remained cold, in stark contrast to the emotional tone of the message. Caleb had rudely demanded information from her. He must have known what transpired in the House of Lords, yet he acted as if none of it mattered to him. He must be feeling desperate. She scoffed and stuffed the letter into an envelope. Right now, Caleb is likely doing everything he can to avoid being abandoned by Ilian. That was to be expected. Elisia suspected he was trapped. But she hadn't anticipated him behaving this way. At the very least, she thought he would feign some remorse. After all, he had used the information she'd leaked to push for her impeachment. Instead, he was completely rude. He acted as if he didn't care how she perceived him. It was as if he had decided not to bother with even the slightest pretense anymore. Perhaps he's grown tired of playing the caring brother. Or maybe he simply doesn't care what I think. Elisia gave a bitter smile. She knew Caleb looked down on her. She also knew his kindness never came from the heart, and that he wanted to be rid of her. At first, I tried to justify his actions. It hurt, but she tried to understand. She was accustomed to putting herself in others' shoes, even in her previous life. I thought perhaps, since the second prince's faction was weak, Caleb had joined the stronger first prince's faction just to survive. If that were the case, maybe she could forgive him. Survival was anyone's priority, who could blame them for that? But that wasn't the real reason. Elisia was shocked by the information Sarah uncovered. The real reason Caleb targeted her was their father's inheritance. That's why Caleb wanted to be rid of her. When she discovered this, when she realized the depth of his hostility, it became impossible to remain calm. To abandon a sister he'd grown up with for nearly his entire life, all for money? That was ridiculous. Sure, money is important. But Elisia's dowry alone was enough for a comfortable life. And Ambrose's territory was not poor either. With proper management, one could live there without financial worries. In short, Caleb was greedy. Feeling anxious, Elisia reviewed the inheritance. The late Baron had left only a modest sum. Ambrose's lands were fertile. The land alone was worth enough to purchase a small castle in the capital. Simply put, the inheritance was sufficient to live without financial worry for the rest of her life. That was, at least, some consolation. It meant the price of being abandoned by her brother was not cheap. If he wanted the money, he should have just said so. Elisia was not greedy for wealth. Caleb should have known that. If she were greedy, she wouldn't have given her entire dowry to the Ambrose family without hesitation. She was going to try to fill her pockets, even just a little. However, Caleb chose to eliminate her rather than talk to her. Sarah, deliver this letter to Caleb. Therefore, Elisia decided to eliminate him as well. She sighed as she watched Sarah leave the office with the letter in hand. Since the message mentioned Dafa, Caleb would likely rush to Ilian excitedly. But Ilian, having been misled by Caleb once, wouldn't believe him so easily. Desperate not to be abandoned, Caleb would go to Dafa himself. There, he would die. If he gets greedy, that is. Elisia hoped Caleb wasn't greedy. But unfortunately, he would probably try to get more. Without realizing that would lead to his downfall. Elisia stood and opened a window. The crisp autumn breeze touched her cheek. With a bitter expression, she ran her fingers through her wind-tousled hair. Whenever she thought about the wind, a certain person came to mind. Caleb. His mana depended on the wind. But it was not strong enough to withstand a landslide. A clumsy ability was worse than no ability at all. He would only be given false hope. Caleb would struggle not to be buried, but in the end he would die a miserable death. Bye, Caleb. Elisia placed her hands on the desk and gazed out the window. The day she bid her final farewell to her brother, the sky was painfully clear. Franz, as he organized papers in his office, glanced at a small box on his desk. He frowned at the person who had placed it there. What is this? His voice was sharp, he didn't appreciate interruptions while working. Most people would have cringed at his tone. But the person before him smiled enthusiastically, as if accustomed to Franz's cold demeanor. Well, why don't you open it and see? With a dismissive gesture, he pointed to the small velvet box, just large enough to fit in the palm of a hand. If you're curious, see for yourself. Franz reached for the box. As he opened it, he looked up, even more puzzled. You'd better explain, Aaron. It's a ring. Clear. And? Aaron sighed deeply, throwing his hands in the air in frustration. It is the red diamond ring His Majesty ordered to be made as a gift for Her Highness. Do you really not know it? Ah, is that so? Franz murmured quietly, finally understanding. It was no surprise Franz didn't recognize him. When it was merely a raw gem, it appeared as just a beautiful red stone. But now that it was set in a ring, surrounded by tiny diamonds, it was dazzling. Even Franz, who had little interest in jewelry, found it difficult to look away. Staring at the ring, he asked, but why now? Her Highness the Second Princess requested a ring made of red diamonds. Then why didn't you give it to her directly? Are you serious? Aaron looked completely frustrated, beating his chest in exasperation. Why do you think I brought this to you, Your Highness? Clearly you should be the one to give it to her. She won't be happy to see me. This is exactly why you should be the one to put it on her finger. Why? Do you really not understand? Aaron looked at him in amazement. You are hopeless when it comes to women. No wonder things are still awkward between you and Her Highness. Franz frowned and rubbed his temple, clearly annoyed. Aaron had struck a sore spot, something already bothering Franz. He had not seen Elisia since the Nobles' Council meeting. The upcoming mining rights announcement had kept him busy. He was doing everything he could to fulfill her wish, to get revenge on Crichton. The mining rights were to be announced next week. The decision had already been made. Dafa would go to Ilion, and Yankaru to Linden. But it was not enough to simply announce the decision. He needed compelling reasons to choose those families, reasons the nobles could accept. That's why Franz worked day and night to prepare the documents. He hadn't been sleeping much lately, and he hadn't seen Elisia. Or rather, he didn't see her awake. He saw her sleeping face every night. Have I been so careless? Franz dropped his hands and muttered. Working for her had ended up stealing all the time they could have spent together. Franz might see Elisia every night, but from her perspective, she hadn't seen him in nearly a month. This was exactly what Aaron had pointed out. It's not too late. Go now. With Aaron's encouragement, Franz closed the ring box and took it in his hand. He glanced at the office clock. There was still a mountain of documents requiring his attention tonight. Was there time for Elisia? As he calculated his schedule, Franz's eyes darkened. Why was he counting? All his time belonged to her. What a fool I am. With a strange gleam in his golden eyes, Franz exchanged a look with Aaron and rose from his seat.